All right, I'm going to call this regular city commission meeting to order at 7 o'clock on February 18th. We have Pastor Wilson here tonight to lead us in prayer, so I'd ask everyone to please stand. Immediately after the prayer, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we want to ask that you would give us and grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage, Lord, to change the things that we can, and wisdom, Lord, to know the difference. We ask your blessing upon this meeting. I pray, Father, that everything and everyone here, that their words and their encouragement, Lord, and the things that need to be said and done would be blessed by you. And we pray, Father, that you would continue to guide and direct, give each of us wisdom and words as we reflect more and more of who you are. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Skatarczyk.
Here.
Commissioner Avery.
Present.
Commissioner Hendrick. Here. Commissioner Levitt.
Here.
Commissioner Mellon.
Here.
Commissioner Simpson.
Here.
Commissioner Turner.
Here.
City Manager Levin is absent this evening, and we have the City Attorney Downey.
Thank you. Communications, we have item 4A, which is a tentative budget calendar. So I guess we'll just check this out and see if it works for us. Want to do an accept and file? Is this communication?
I move to accept and file the budget calendar.
Support.
Motion to support. Is there any questions on this schedule?
I guess just if I can make a comment for those who might be following along in the audience, that our budget workshop dates are scheduled as of right now, April 26th to the 28th, and that would be in this room. We usually start at 7 p.m. each evening. So that's a process that we go through once a year for next year's budget. So.
Anyone else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Has been accepted. We are now moving to the public comment portion of the meeting. You're invited to come to the podium and address the commission. Please state your name and address and keep your comments to under 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Darlene Sugamelli Jarvis. I live at 2025 South Parker in Marine City. I'm here tonight because you guys, we're still dealing with the fence issue. A new fence ordinance is in the mix here, and I have been to quite a few of the meetings prior to this, and last time we were here, I noticed that you guys were bringing it up, and I didn't know, otherwise I would have spoke then. I have a copy of your revised ordinance, and I can say to you that there's so many still loopholes in this ordinance. Again, I oppose it. I think as a resident on the river, I have a right to do what I want with my property. I feel that the old ordinance was fine. Yes, there was a hiccup. I have never seen any of my neighbors who have contested show up at the Planning and Zoning Commission. I think that's where we were. Planning Commission. None of them showed up for that. None of them are here that I know of today. And I still come here and I still ask you to please just leave the old ordinance. And if not, then put it on a ballot and let the citizens of Marine City decide whether or not we should do this. Pertaining to your new ordinance that you have, there's some loopholes, so let me address them for you. It says, excuse me, on number E, under 156.03, all fencing shall comply with the requirements of the applicable building and zoning codes. Well, if you look in the 2015 code book, it says you can have a fence 7 foot high. So you guys need to revise that. Another one is under C, under the same. You guys go on to say that metal painted exposed, stuff like that, but you guys don't include chain fences. You don't include cedar fences. If people are going to find that loophole. So if you're not more specific on things like this, we're going to find them. B says fences are obstruction. I called, spoke to an engineer with a chain link fence manufacturer institution. I gave him my gauge. I have a 12 gauge fence. He told me that my fence is 89.86% visible. I've given Kristen pictures of my fence. No one here has ever come to my door and asked to come and see it. You're all more than welcome. And as you can see, the picnic table is more of a visible disturbance than my fence. I know a lot of people aren't happy about this, but yesterday I went around and I distributed that ordinance to a lot of members on the Bell River and St. Clair River. And I let them know that what's going to happen if this passes. And there's a few people here, and some people didn't come. I'm passionate about this. This is my property. We pay a lot of taxes. Are you guys going to reduce my tax bill?
Please don't address.
It's okay.
Speaker.
Oh, you can if you want, because
No,
I'm
I
trying
don't
to.
really want this to turn into a debate. This is your chance to talk to us.
Okay. I don't understand why we're here. Is it because of my fence? Because there's fences that people have had disagreements with, and the ordinance was never thought of to be changed then. I'm not understanding, and no one's made it clear enough for me. I've heard at the Planning Commission, they said that East China, Marysville, St. Clair Shores, Algonac, and, that's St. Clair Shores. I have all of their fence and zoning permits or ordinances here. So they're not entitled to a 4-foot fence. They're entitled to a 24-inch fence or shrubbery. They're entitled to 3 feet, 3-inch fence or shrubbery. So by you guys, and they said in the zoning that from, I think it was Lexington to Detroit, that you can't have a fence. That's not true. I have all of them here. And I went and spoke to everybody about them in the cities, and they all have some type of a barrier. They just don't have a 4-foot fence. So I just asked to please just think about it, or if you guys really want to do this, I mean, there's nothing I can do. I've exhausted everything. I've spent thousands of dollars for attorneys, just basically to defend my right. And I just want you to really, really think about it. Because, yes, I have my fence, and you guys would probably be saying you're grandfathered in. But you know what? What about our future generation? What about the people that don't know about this on Bell River in St. Clair? It's not fair to them. And that's important to me, that everyone should know. I was here last time when we talked about, and you guys were talking about the sheriffs. The people should know about the fence too. Some people don't have computers, they don't know. And so I want them to be aware of what's going on. Now I'm being told my front yard is my backyard, and I can't plant I can't plant shrubs over 4 feet. I can't put a 4-foot chain link fence back up after we took it down from 1942 because it was, falling apart. I can't put a fence up if I want to garden. I have to go pull all my permits now before you guys decide if you're going to keep this. So I'm just asking you, just rethink it. I would be more than happy to sit down with somebody if they want to revise this, and if you're totally against fences, but give me an opportunity, or give our community an opportunity to know about it. That's all. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else? Please. It's you.
Rosalie Squires, 211 Michigan. I just want to make a statement regarding this water situation, that you did change it, but it was quite a shock for me to get a $36.03 bill just to have a meter to water my flowers, because I have 2 spigots. And I know it used to cost me a lot of money to water my flowers from just the regular spigot, and it was told to me by the water department I should put in another water line so that it wouldn't cost me so much, and it cost me, I had to pull a permit, and it cost me like $600. That was back when there was still MC Plumbing, he put it in. And it used to be about $5 or $6 a month to keep the meter until I started using it like in May. But you raised it 400% to $36.03. Now I know you rescinded that supposedly, and I don't know, we're gonna get like a refund or something. But that's quite an oversight. I don't know how no one noticed that, because it used to be, we used to get it on a little like postcard type thing, and this used to be called a sprinkler faucet. And it was on the same address, so I don't know how that was an oversight. It would have been, if you were allowed to collect it, it would have been, there's about 60 people, at least that's what I was told when I pulled the permit, about 60 people have these kind of water meters, and that would have been about $20,000 that you would have been able to collect. I never protested it, but other people did, so you changed it. But I think that's a big error that you didn't notice that. You have flowers yourself that you water with our tax dollars, and I don't think it should cost me, it would have cost me over $400 a year just to have a meter before I even use the water to water my flowers if you hadn't rescinded it. And I think that's quite an error. Another thing I want to bring up is I've had some huge health issues in the last year and a half, and one of the things was I had a knee replacement, and we've put a great deal of money in the downtown area, but it's really hard to park down there, and it's really hard to get around. And I think we really need to concentrate on that. I know that Miller's is going to go through probate in about 6 weeks, and then it'll probably go up for sale. Maybe we should consider buying that building, tearing it down, so that there would be a walkway through that area to the back parking. Maybe we should consider some things like 2-hour parking all along Water Street, because it is really hard to park down there. And people say, well, you can walk. Well, yeah, you can walk, but like a lot of people don't do a good job shoveling the snow or putting salt out. And with a new knee replacement, even though now I can walk and it's really, the knee replacement was a very positive thing for me, I don't want to fall on the ice, because replacing a knee replacement is not a pretty thing. And I think that's something you really need to consider. I also think that I'd love to know where it is in the federal laws or in the Michigan laws that our temporary city hall doesn't have to be handicap accessible, because I find that nowhere in the law. And if you can find it for me, I'd love for you to show me it, because I think if we can put $1 million in the city hall on our original city hall on the corner of Broadway Street, I think that we can spend some money to make this temporary building accessible, because it's very hard for me with my many conditions to open that door at the building, to even come in and discuss with anybody this water bill, let alone go in there and pay for it. And I think everybody should have access. When you don't have access to the downtown area, and I know I'm not the only one, like I like to get bread at the end of the day on Saturday and take it to my niece on Sunday, because we go to the same church. I go into the bakery. But if there's not a place for me to park, I just go on. And because I'm not going to walk 2 blocks to go get bread, I'll go buy it someplace on my way to church. But that's not what we want for our downtown. We want to be able to shop local, keep our money local, but to do that, we need to be able to park local. And now with, the parking places, for instance, by the Riverbank Theater, those parking places for the handicapped are used up for the matinee. So I can't park there. I have to park further down. And I do think some of these things need to be addressed, that, I shouldn't have to drive out of my town and shop somewhere else. I'm sure I'm not the only one doing it. I'm sure when people can't find parking spaces, they drive out too. But, the only way you can keep employees from parking in those parking spaces and keep people, we redid all those apartments, keep people that are in the apartments from parking in those parking spaces, is to create a 2-hour parking so that people that want to shop downtown can actually shop downtown. Because right now, we need to keep local business shopping in our downtown. Bringing people in might have been an original idea, it might have been nice, but with the exchange rate so high right now, the Canadians are not coming over here to shop because they can't afford it. Port Huron is crying the blues because they're losing so much, and some merchants in town are crying the blues. So I think we need to address this. Get parking into the downtown area so that local people can actually park and shop down there. Thank you.
Mr. Hawes?
Bill House, 203 Pleasant Street. One thing I have heard our police department, it's my understanding someone will have to do the legal action, I'm not quite sure. But if we have two high-ranking officers, we don't need a police chief. They can report to the city manager. They should have Heslop, Vandermuth, instead of wasting money on another police chief we don't need, get a couple cadets. 2-hour parking downtown, that'd be great, keep moving. Fish company, everybody else, like you say, there is no parking. And public comment, last week, Commissioner Privilege, Levin, Lovett, talked about, I should call code enforcement. September, October 2014, I lit them up pretty good, both the housing guy and the code enforcement. I was waiting for the MCPD to come to my house. So it's not that I went to Port Huron, checked probate court, registered deeds. Hour and a half I spent up in Port Huron, come down, hit the city hall. What's going on? We'll get back to you. 10 days later, they tell me the same thing I already found out. But I don't think we need a police chief. Going to our mayor's comment, he thought I was talking about Tillery leaving. No, I split PA 33 in half. I moved over to 300 Broadway. Bob Lepley sitting front and center at getting ready for Heritage Days. Recalled mayor, wrongfully terminated, who I thought was an actual, like Heslop playing police chief. Understand someone tells me he was just a regular police officer at the time. Should have went through regular insurance instead of putting it on taxpayers' back. It's just like I say, it's amazing. It's in 300 Broadway, front and center. How much we pay for that police building? Wasted cash. You got the bathrooms out of there now, all cemented up. Ain't that like a health violation, health code type deal? You used to be the mold issue and the condemned sticker. Not quite sure what happened to that back in the day, but we use it. Like I say, it just amazes me. You got all 5 of you are friends of City Hall. You took over the Guy Center, all the money we wasted on a police deal. Why the hell didn't we put the money back in and get the cops right back in there? How much are we paying for that? Monthly payment plus all the rest. People are fed up. That's all I got.
Thank you.
This corner of 415 Carroll Street. This is my third or fourth time I've asked this question, and it's going to be my last time I ask this question. About people not picking up after their dogs. They go through town, and the dogs, I'm a dog owner, and I walk my dog all the time. I carry 3-4 bags with me, and I see these people think they don't have to clean up after the dogs, or they're exempt from it. Nobody's exempt from it. And I offer them a bag, and they say, what do you want me to do with that? And I said, well, it's your responsibility to clean up. But I've asked you, like I said, 3 or 4 times now, this commission and the previous commission, what can be done or can be enforced. I get the same thing all the time. We'll look into it. Well, you know what? I get tired of walking that dog crap. It's never being enforced. And if I was a business owner downtown, I'd be at this meeting every 2 weeks. Because I wouldn't want my customers, if I own a restaurant or whatever, I wouldn't want my customers coming in there and tracking dog crap in and smelling the whole place up and spoiling it for everyone else, all my regular customers. All you're doing is driving your customers away. But apparently Marine City doesn't care about it, so I guess this is my last time here.
Do we have anyone else?
Alan Richley, 559 North Bell River. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and my fellow citizens, I am here again to express my opposition to the proposed tax increase on the March 8th ballot. As you know, I'm opposed to this initiative for a variety of reasons. There's been a lack of transparency in the way that this PA 33 issue has been pushed. I have taken the opportunity to go out and talk with some people today. I went door to door for a few hours. And in the last few weeks, I've made some phone calls and also have been getting a lot of emails from concerned Marine City residents. I'm willing to venture to say that not one of these people I spoke with was in favor of this proposal. I do not think that it's an understatement to say that the very people in favor of this proposal are in this very room. I have to respond to Mr. Moran and his comments at the last meeting. First, I want to say that I respect your view on how the commission has handled the PA 33 issue. I also respect him for sharing his view in public. I do not agree with him, but I do respect him. One of the reasons given for residents to pass the upcoming tax increase on March 8th has been roads and infrastructure projects. On the ballot, it specifically states police and fire services. What I fail to understand is why the commission is hiding behind PA 33. What are you going to spend the money on in the general fund? Where will it go? And what specific projects will benefit from these extra dollars? Mind you, these questions should have been answered months ago, not weeks before an election. My fellow citizens, notice how there are no specifics, no details, and no explanations, aside from generalizations. I see that there is an agenda item tonight to discuss this issue, with no details, but it's too little too late. People have already voted absentee. My favorite argument is that if you don't support this tax increase, you're either anti-police or fire. I probably am the most pro-first responder person in this room, in addition to this money not being used for police and fire. Also, I want to express my appreciation to Commissioner Hendrick, who has taken a lot of heat lately, and it's not always easy to do the right thing, to stand against the grain. It never ceases to amaze me how people in government can be so wrong, but at the same time believe that they are so right, which at this time seems to be the case with the mayor and some commissioners. Commissioner Hendrick not only talks transparency, she fights for it and lives and breathes it. And that's exactly what I would expect from all our elected representatives. Commissioner Simpson brought up a good point at the last meeting, and it's an issue that is near and dear to my heart, and that is voter turnout. People, especially young voters these days, are extremely apathetic when it comes to getting out to vote. Sometimes I ask myself, why is that? Why is it that in an off-year election, special election, or primary election, we can only draw 15, 20, 25% of the vote? Marine City has put the same idea of a tax increase for the last decade. This issue has been put to voters at least 3 or 4 times in my memory, and I'm fairly young. So I think it's been more than that, but that's just in my memory. Even after voters said no, the commission continues to spend money like water and tries different schemes to get into our wallets. From the water bill to PA 33, which residents have gathered petition signatures for the right to vote on, people do not vote because they are disappointed, discouraged, and quite frankly do not believe that their vote matters. Yes, I have just one more thing to go. I will leave you with a couple of quotes. Winston Churchill once said, "For a government to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up with the handle." Lastly, I can lead you to knowledge, but I can't make you think. Thank you for listening, and I strongly urge my fellow citizens to vote no on March 8th. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, everybody. Joe Moran, 710 Pleasant Street. Marine City is under assault lately by would-be, wannabe Tea Party politicians who have personal agendas that have nothing to do with the tax situation here in Marine City. They're not even taxpayers. Make it simple. You own a home, you pay taxes, you have a mortgage, you have grocery expenses, medical expenses, maintenance expenses. The washer is broken, you need to replace it, you need a new lawnmower. All of these things happen on a daily basis as part of life, but the cost keeps escalating. It goes up and it goes up and it goes up. And suddenly you find that for some reason your income is going down. 5% one year, 6% the next year. Over the last 5 years, maybe it's dropped 15.5%. What do? You start making cuts. You don't take vacations. You cut out the cable TV. The kids don't get the phone. But still, you cannot keep pace. What do? You need more income. You get a second job. Maybe your wife goes to work. Maybe she gets a second job. You have to bring in the income. Marine City is in that situation. Over the last 5 years, we have lost 15.5% of our income. Going back to 2009, it's closer to 25 to 30% of our income. That's because of declining property values and declining revenue sharing. The money just is not there. But the city's expenses have to be met, and they too grow. We cannot hide behind statistics that say, oh, we have the third highest tax rate in the county. Well, if you're looking at the cities in the county, that's true. We have the third highest tax rate. But when compared to the other cities in the county, I'm talking Algonac, St. Clair, Marysville, Memphis, Yale, Richmond, the average difference between those tax rates is about 2.3%. So we're not dealing with runaway taxation here compared to our neighbors. They're in the same situation we are. They're in a slightly better situation because overall their tax base has been increasing over the last 5-6 years, while ours has barely crept forward. Our tax base just isn't there. We need the income. Now, what are we talking about here? Thousands of dollars a year? No, we're not. We're talking about, on average, less than $140 a year. That's on average. Most of our taxpayers will pay considerably less. That's a pizza a month. If you're not willing to spend that much money to keep your town going in the direction that it's going, then move to Algonac, move to St. Clair, move to Richmond, move to Cottrellville. They have much lower tax bases. You'll be happy there. We have people in this town that are pushing a no new taxes agenda like there's no tomorrow because it's popular. Not because it's right, it's popular. And because it gets attention and it gets votes. And I think that's wrong. I think if you want to be a politician, go to Lansing. Don't come to Marine City. The majority of this commission are non-political citizens of this town who have no other agenda than to move this town forward and to keep it growing. To do anything less is to do a disservice to this town. I can cite numbers just like anybody else. I can disguise numbers just like anybody else. I can obfuscate the truth just like anybody else. If you read this article, Jerry's not here tonight. This editorial, it does nothing but obscure what this board is trying to do. Nobody's hiding anything here. If you come to these meetings every week like I have been, nobody's hiding anything here. There are no secrets. There are no hidden agendas. We need PA 33 because it pays for our police services. We need those services. By using PA 33 to pay for those police services, we free up money in the general budget to do things that need to be done in the city. What are those things specifically? Well, we have a published budget. If you want to read that published budget, you will see the things that we have outlined to do in this city. And we barely have the money to do that. You want your streets paved? This isn't going to cover it.
Anyone else? It's quite a broad bunch of subjects tonight. And moving on to the approval of the agenda.
We need to make an amended agenda, so I move to move to amend the agenda to add number 10F, which is board appointment to the Board of Review.
We have motion and support. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The agenda has been approved as amended. Moving on to the minutes from the regular meeting of February 4th.
I again make note that there's amendments, there's some information missing. First one is it's just a simple English error, but on page 2, second paragraph, at the end of the second line in that paragraph, site should be S-I-G-H-T. The budget was out of sight. S-I-T-E is a place. But also missing is a comment or a request by myself and seconded by Commissioner Simpson that we develop an ordinance that motorists must stop for pedestrians in the sidewalk. That comment was made at the end of the meeting, the last meeting. So with those corrections,
Where exactly were those comments made? During Commissioner privilege, or?
I believe it was at Commissioner privilege. I don't recall exactly.
I recall that after the meeting.
I think it was after the meeting.
You and I had discussed it, but that wasn't until after the meeting.
No, the meeting, we were still in meeting. We had not adjourned. I had asked when what did it take to get to?
Yeah, but I'll listen back.
Might want to review the tape
I will,
and put it in the
definitely.
appropriate spot.
Yeah, I would have to go back and myself listen.
Yeah,
I recall it differently, Diane, but
I don't.
I'll listen for it.
But we did make the request, and City Manager Levin said that was correct. So that's when we did that. But anyway, I make a motion. Then I don't know where we're at.
Approve the minutes as
make
amended.
a motion to approve the minutes.
support.
Motion support. Any other discussion on the minutes? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Was that are you opposing the minutes? Opposing, yes. All right. We have one nay. All right, then moving on now to the consent agenda. We have item 8A, which is departmental activity reports, item 8B, which is Marine City Fire Authority run report, and agenda packet, item 8C, which is Planning Commission minutes from January 11th, item 8D, which is business license for Big River Antique and Estate Sales.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda and place on file.
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion? Commissioner Henry.
Yeah, I noticed we didn't get a building report, nothing on blight, so I just wondered if maybe next time we could
Yeah, we
get some.
requested it, and I'll bring it to city manager Levin's attention if they can ask for it, but I do not, I saw a reminder.
Yeah, okay, no
Okay.
problem.
Commissioner Levitt.
Yes, I would just like to bring everyone's attention to the reports, especially the DPW report. It is 8A, Section 8A, I think it's second report there. But in this report, our superintendent, DPW, makes note that 94.5 hours of maintenance on major repairs and breakdowns to the following: a 1992 GMC boom truck, 24 years old; 2006 Ford Expedition, 10 years old; 2000 Sterling, 16 years old; 2006 Chevy pickup, 10 years old. 2.5 weeks out of what the DPW should be doing is being spent on old, outdated equipment, far beyond its use. And just a reminder that if you look at budgets from last year, before we made changes, capital improvements are missing from our budgets at this point, and capital improvements are something we need to be adding into a budget, is what one of the things PA 33 would be doing. Also want to make note on the police department schedule. I went through and highlighted all the activity that took place by one police officer during the night hours, and that was 35% of all action taken was taken during the night by one police officer. During that time, he is not, or she is not, available for anything else in the community. Just want to make those notes that you be aware of what is happening. It's not something that we seem to keep hidden all the time, but those are the facts.
Anyone
Thank
else?
you.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Now to item 9A, which is the sidewalk inspection program. So, this has been brought up by Commissioner Simpson and myself and a few others that we wanted to get this back on track. So I asked city manager to go back and try to find the records from the last meeting that was on the agenda and that we had a discussion on it. And so all that was in your packet, and I think most of you got that well in advance of the meeting. From what I can see, we were at a point where we had pretty much come to terms with everything in the plan, and at that point, we had the acting city manager, Tillery, go to TIFA and request funding, in which was approved. So this is just to get that discussion going again. I'd like to see it as an actual introduction. The ordinance is an introduction at the next meeting, hopefully, unless there's major issues with this as it is right now. Commissioner Levitt.
I just want to note, on the second half of the inspection program, the page number restarts, but on page 4 of that, it was revised on 9/13/2014. So if we are going to do this, we need to change perhaps dates here before that would be ready to go. Also, if you look at toward the back, you have a brochure, which is very nice. The brochure has a lot of areas that need to be, I think, updated, and perhaps combine the last 2 pages into the brochure, if that's what you're going to do, and make them correlate. Right now, at this point, you have one fact sheet and then you have a brochure, and they're not correlated. But those would be the only suggestions I would make at this point before we approved it totally.
Your Honor, if I may, one issue that I'm going to have to defer to the Commission's collective memory on is This matter was brought in substance by City Manager Gaber in the late summer, early fall of 2014. And one of the items that's in your packet is a proposed ordinance amendment that the mayor's referenced is perhaps being ready for introduction at the next meeting. If you'll recall, at that time, because I was present at that meeting with Mr. Gaber, we had proposed this ordinance as a solution because the current ordinance contains about 16 sections. I checked that out in advance of tonight's meeting. 16 sections of red tape in order to get these fixes met. And the solution that we came up with was to strip that down to a mere 2 sections, and that's the ordinance that you have. But contingent on that, I think it'll have to be adopted simultaneously with the ordinance, is there has to be a sidewalk inspection plan adopted by resolution. And what I'm not clear on is whether that document that Commissioner Lovett has referenced has been deliberated by this body. My memory is that the city manager Gaber had presented it, and I don't know whether there'd been any input or back and forth, and it's possible that may have occurred at a meeting at which I did not attend, but I know that in my discussions with City Manager Levin last week, I think she was hoping to get some guidance as to whether or not the proposed document that had been formulated by Mr. Gaber is acceptable, or whether or not the commission wishes to add or subtract anything, or simply to revise something that's currently in.
Well, my memory on that is we did deliberate it. And in fact, there was quite a few questions that came up that you actually addressed in a legal opinion letter.
Okay, well, I'm satisfied with that.
No, there's still a couple things, because I talked to Steve Saff, our insurance agent, and he said that no matter what everybody says, he said he'd be happy to come to a meeting, which I'd like to see him here. He said that if a city tree does the damage to the sidewalk, he said the city is responsible to repair that sidewalk. And he said he would come here, and so, I mean, I still have an issue with that portion of it.
That's a question I had as well, not just stepping your toes, but since you brought it up, there's one issue I know is different that has never been brought up before. That's always been a sticking point for me, is the trees. You know, if we cause that damage, you know, that's a responsibility. But in page 2 of the frequently asked questions document we received, it says that trees that are located between the sidewalk and street are the responsibility of St. Clair County. It doesn't say City of Marine City.
Yeah.
That's a first difference, and I'm not sure if that's a typo. That's a big question I have, but since you brought that up, I apologize for the interruption, but I thought it was pertinent right there, because it's different in this new documentation than it's ever been before.
Well, St. Clair County's referenced several places.
Yes.
So that's
I think this may be a template. And I think that, again, and I guess that's to the point the city manager Levin raised with me.
This could be not even the correct document. Where did you know where this actually came from?
I think
It was in the office?
Yes, it came from an office and it was provided.
What I was hoping we would do is go back to a meeting where it was actually introduced, and because this might not even be the newest or most current version if she just found it sitting on a...
It's different than previous ones I have found.
Yeah, because I think we did discuss it. I think we did address some changes. The question of the trees and who does the street
Commissioner
ends,
Turner brought that up, I recall that.
was addressed in a legal opinion I have here from you. At the time it was a confidential opinion, but I've got it here, which I think you basically said, I don't even remember. I'd have to read it again.
I guess I still prefer to see why the insurance guy is telling us different, you know, I mean, it's not, no offense, but, you know, he said he had no problem coming to a meeting and being a bad guy about this, but he said the taxpayers...
Well, I think maybe this is something we could probably resolve with Mr. Saff, but the city has an ordinance that allows it to charge back to the property owner any fix that's done. So,
well, true, but I mean, if it's a city's tree, and right now the city has to maintain those trees, the city has to cut them down if there's an issue, and the city's planting them unless somebody wants to. So if the city does the damage, I know my mom had to pay for one tree already that's done damage to the sidewalk, and she had to pay to repair it. If it's the city's tree, the city should pay to repair that damage. Why should the homeowner? I guess that's the point, and that's the same thing he was saying. He said if it's the city's tree, which it is, he said the city should pay for the damage of that tree to the person's sidewalk. The person shouldn't. And so that's the issue that I still want. Maybe you could talk with him and you guys could work it out. I think that's one of the things we wanted to happen, was that there was a conversation between you and the insurance agent.
Well, I guess there's one issue I'd take with that is the insurance agent is an insurance agent, not a city attorney.
I'll be glad to speak with
Yeah.
Elaine when she gets back, and we can speak with Mr. Saff and have something prepared.
Yeah, I just see a lot of issues still in here that,
That was my only question raising. I'm not sure that any of these have been resolved finally, and I just wanted to raise that question.
Yeah, you know, the last minutes that were pulled up were basically a meeting after we had already had many questions and deliberated on it several times. And I think if you find the meeting where the packet was at, the program was actually distributed to the last time, it may be different than this document we have right here.
I'll look for that, and then we'll also review it and see where it says.
So, you know, and that discussion's a very
Second
important
time.
discussion too, because
Okay.
the discussion we had at the last time we actually dealt with the packet and not the ordinance. I mean, with the program itself is important, because I think we've spent so long, we're all fuzzy on it. Commissioner Simpson?
Yeah, one of my bigger concerns, first was the trees, and how do we rectify that, because that's a considerable cost. I know just up and down my street alone, I count over 60 different, issues with that. And I recall the other issue being, how do we fund this? We, obviously, there's can be an assessment towards taxpayers on that, because ultimately it's their responsibility, but, there's two components of that. The city has a lot of sidewalks that we're ultimately responsible for as well, but we also talked about there at least needs to be some sort of seed money to go to begin this program. We wouldn't get those tax dollars back until after,
That was already brought to TIF and was approved. That was,
Okay.
the minutes that are in your packet actually were the meeting that we directed the acting city manager to go talk to Tiffin for us, and they did approve it, and so.
But my question specifically is, have we had an actuarial review about what this might cost us, and are those funds going to be, I don't think we've delved deep enough into the initial cost between one or two
Right.
zones, because we've also talked about, if the two-zone structure, doing 2 zones a year is a bit much, maybe do 1 zone, that's my concern, is dollar amount sufficient? Because it's a big problem in a lot of areas, and that's my question. I don't think we've approved funds, but is that gonna be enough to sustain the program? That's my worry.
I don't think you're gonna be able to get those numbers until the actual area's been, inspected, and the amount of repairs put in there. I mean, the only kind of quote we could get in advance would be like a square foot price for concrete.
Well, I think that's why our city attorney is saying the inspection plan is the first step. You have to figure out, how bad is it? What's it gonna cost?
Yeah, I mean, in cities where they actually do a good job of this, they go through and they have to mark, the sidewalks that are damaged, send notices to the homeowners, give them the opportunity to repair it or get on the program. The funding for it, whether or not that's gonna be sufficient, I don't really know. I don't think we have a great idea, but the way I remember, we had talked about, at least when John Gaber was at the last meeting, we talked about 3 zones and taking 1 each year.
Right, we talked about it several different ways.
Yeah, I don't think I would almost feel better with 4 zones and, taking a little bit more time at it, so you're not biting off so much at one time.
Because this is divvied up into 4 zones.
Is it 4?
Yeah, that's
The map I used for the,
it's difficult to read the map, but it's,
yeah, he's got
Yeah.
4 zones.
yeah,
And he talked about 1 zone a year, yeah.
yeah,
And to do the worst of the worst first,
right.
and that was it, and then, and then go back, and get through each one, and then go back around another time,
Yeah, that's what's kind of frustrating to me. I think we were real close to actually pulling the trigger on this, and then because of the issues with city managers and whatever, it kind of fell through the cracks on us.
Good pun.
Hmm?
Good pun.
Yeah. Commissioner Avery?
In this packet, there is what appears to be a trifold thing. And just to add to what we've been discussing,
There's a statement, for aesthetic and ecological reasons, Marine City does not remove trees from the public road right-of-way. I find that
wrong.
awkward.
That's wrong, because we do.
Well, we have, and it's a good thing.
So where are we at? We're gonna try to make sure that we have the most current and up-to-date document.
Yeah.
We're going to revisit the issue of who's responsible for tree damage. If it's a tree that was on the boulevard, I take it, as opposed to the front yard.
This is just for the trees that the city owns.
City-owned trees.
Yeah.
And then
The inspection program component?
the inspection program component, which I thought we had worked out.
As you can see, I have many notes. The literature itself needs to be revamped and looked at. Perhaps the committee or something to meet with city manager to, you know, put this back on city manager to develop the plan so that it's certainly a lot more meaningful than what we have right now. Putting everything back together.
It really sounds like maybe it might be nice to double check the accuracy of, is this the most recent document, and maybe continue that conversation after we've confirmed, is this the most recent document? If so, these are the changes we need to make. If not, we're sort of,
Yeah,
spend a little bit of time on here, something that might not be accurate,
I'm a little doubtful.
which I don't mind,
I'm a
but
little doubtful this
yeah.
is the most current or one that we've seen. Because when I talked to city manager about it, she says, "Oh yeah, it's over there on top of the file cabinet. You know, there's a pile." So who knows what condition that pile was in? And if the most current version of what he had was actually on his computer, who knows?
Right.
Commissioner Avery?
I would like to follow up with Commissioner Lovett's comment there, that we should form a committee that can work with the city manager, because she doesn't have a lot of people hanging around that can just write all this stuff and work on
Plus,
it.
she has no memory of any of this because she wasn't here. So.
Well, she wasn't here, but I'm just saying that
Well,
we can
somebody
work
want to
on
make
it,
a motion
couple
to form
people.
a subcommittee?
I will make a motion to form a subcommittee to work on the sidewalk proposal issue.
Support?
A motion to support. Do we have any volunteers for said subcommittee? There's one, two. We can make it any number we want, so up to three.
Up to you.
Can you raise your hand because I was writing? However,
So we've got
Harry.
Avery.
Commissioner Lovett, Commissioner Avery have volunteered to be part of the subcommittee. And that's probably enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
The bulk of the dense material is written as fine tuning what's there and making sure it's accurate.
All right. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You are a new subcommittee. All right.
I
So are
forget about
we still
volunteering.
discussing?
I think it's kind of pointless to discuss it anymore at this point.
I'd like to point out one thing.
Okay.
In my mind, the inspection routine and correcting the wordage or verbiage of this ordinance are two separate things. What's to stop us from getting our inspection started? I mean, that's going to take some time, and I'm assuming we're going to rely on DPW to do it for us, unless we're going to hire somebody. We don't have no money, so we're not going to hire anybody. That's going to take a lot of time. Look at how much time it took them in the report that you read tonight to do certain things. They're limited. I would suggest we have guidelines given here as to what is criteria for a broken sidewalk, dysfunctional sidewalk. Let them get started. And at least map out where the worst areas are. That's going to take a lot more time than.
You know, the concern I would have on that is, what if we change the program or some verbiage, in that program that would then cause reinspection? If we change some of the terminology and some of the markings, that since this inspection can component that we have listed is very specific. Type M and type T, those types of things.
Okay.
And it lists specifically, 1/8-inch gaps, those types of things. What if we change that within the program in the course of working on it? That would be my only concern on that. I do.
Do you anticipate changes?
I don't, but who knows? I mean, it's something we're working through. I agree with what I am hearing as your spirit of what you're saying, is that the sooner we get going on that, the better,
Yeah.
because it's time consuming and we
This
really
will
want to
take
get
at
going on
least
it.
2 or 3 meetings to get through. I mean, they could get started on inspecting, based on the criteria that's here, and if they have to adjust. This criteria, in my mind, is good enough for them to do an inspection.
I would think a lot of that's already done because Mr. Itrich has already walked most of these sidewalks with the Safe Routes program.
Okay.
So I don't think that would be difficult for him at all. Right now, I don't think it would take any time at all to come up with, what are the worst sidewalks, if that's what you're looking
I
for.
mean, I would agree, probably before we actually have the program in place and voted on, that, I'd hate to waste any time or money on something that might get changed, so.
Okay.
I think the pressure should be on us to get this done. I mean, this has been going on
Yeah.
forever, and so I would hope we could quickly, in a couple of meetings, refine the documents and bring this back here, for an actual introduction.
And if we did, it allows us to really be timely, because a lot of this process starts in March and
Commissioner Avery?
I think that what Commissioner Turner brought up is the most important part of this, and that is, if we can't fund it, then there's no sense even worrying about it. So we should put something in the budget. If we don't have money for it, then we don't carry the sidewalk thing through right now.
Well, we do have money. It was approved.
Well, I thought that was just,
No, it was actually, we could get the minutes from the Tifa meeting, but they did approve it. So we do have a funding source.
I understood that funding was a money forward so that the property owner didn't have to pay it right away, but that they would then
Well,
be
the
paying it
problem-
back.
The problem
It's
is,
not a-
it's funding because there's going to be up to an 18-month delay in our ability to collect money from individual property owners.
Right.
So that gap has to be bridged by the city.
Right. I just
Or the
wanted to
program-
understand, when
or
you
the
say
program.
funding, it sounds like we're going to pay for it, and that's not what funding is.
Well-
We're putting
Well,
the money
the
forward.
city's probably
get it
going to pay
started.
for some of it because we're responsible for some of it.
that's right, we've got city
Sure,
things.
Yeah,
but
like
not-
the street ends and.
Not all of it.
But I do agree that that's an important distinction. It's not, it's not a free ride for folks that
Right,
have
the
been
the
deferring
fund,
this
the
maintenance.
funding is necessary to finance the program until we can collect from individual property owners.
Seed money, if you would.
Yeah, seed money, yeah. Commissioner Malley?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just want you to be mindful, remember when Mr. Gaber made a comment, if you start marking sidewalks, you're opening up a door open in case somebody slips and falls, and they see a marking on that sidewalk, we're liable all the more so. I just want to make a suggestion, if we do a temporary fix and saying something that's uneven, laying some asphalt on a temporary fix. In other words, that we're going to attain it instead of just marking it with orange paint or something, you know what I'm saying? Because Mr. Gaber made a point clear, once you open up a door.
Well, that's another reason why we shouldn't start the inspection program until we've got something in place. Yeah. Does that ring true to you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, if we go around marking sidewalks, we've increased our liability because we've pointed out a problem?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, but we don't have to mark it on the sidewalk, we mark it
Put on a piece of
records.
Just addresses.
Yeah, I know, I mean, where I grew up, I know that's the way St. Clair Shores always handled it. They just went around with, every year, with their little can of paint and made homeowners aware that they had so much time to fix it, or they would. But they stayed on top of it.
Right.
It's not anywhere going to be like we're going to have whole streets that are going to need work. Commissioner Simpson?
I think to Mr. Melly's point is that, one of our legal opinions says that the only way is sort of the city gets out of liability is if we didn't know, we weren't aware of it. We're well aware of this issue. I mean, this is documented infinitely in just the last, number of years, so we would never escape liability in that sense because it's been such a long road, and it's been in front of us for so long.
There was a comment made at the last meeting by a commissioner and talking about horrible conditions in a particular stretch, and that actually has made us more liable. So I'd caution everybody, to be careful what you say, because once you point it out, then we've been duly noted, and it's responsibility on us to go do something about it. So I guess we'll just have to figure, that's something the subcommittee's gonna have to probably figure out, is how we're going to identify this and keep a record of it without marking it. I don't know how you logistically do that.
Got an address.
You got an address, but if you got one slab in that entire address that needs repair, and then you've got some crew, that's been contracted that goes around and just takes on areas, there has to be something to identify the work they're supposed to be doing.
There's a map shown in this as to how to do it. I think that's fairly
You have
explanatory.
the geo ability to take pictures of areas.
Got a camera?
Yeah,
Use Google Streets or...
Google Streets, that's right.
But I mean, a binder with that for each property, and as Commissioner Turner said, a digital picture.
Well, I guess, we got plenty of liability anyway. Like you said, we all know we got sidewalks that need to be fixed, so I don't know that we're gonna make it any worse.
That was my point.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that one. Anyone else? All right, so we formed a subcommittee, and our city manager returns to work on Monday, so we'll have her get in touch with them to schedule a first meeting, or you guys work it out amongst yourselves. Sounds like a plan.
Thanks for volunteering.
Yeah. So is everyone satisfied with this discussion for right now? All right, we'll move on to item 10A, which is telephone pole code enforcement. This is basically on the agenda because of Commissioner Avery, who made a comment that we just read these things and don't do anything about it. So our city manager did have a discussion with our ordinance code inspector, and he said that in Marine City, he does not feel that this is an issue, and that some of the poles that are a big problem are not within the city limits. Basically, that was his response. He doesn't view it as a problem. I did ask that she have him prepare a memo to such an effect or something for our packet, but he hasn't been around. So we didn't get the memo, but that's the gist of what he would say. He does not believe that signs on poles is a big issue in Marine City, basically. Any questions, Commissioner Hendrick?
I guess the biggest ones are gonna be on corners,
Right.
So if the code enforcement guy sees them on the corner, I guess just remove
Well, a big one is on King Road and Marine City Highway, but it's actually East
China.
China. Yeah, it's not ours, so.
I would say down like, this one or this corner, the two lights, because a lot of people like to post their garage sale signs on them, so those are kind of the big ones that I always see.
Commissioner Levitt?
Is it illegal to just rip them down if you see them?
Yeah, you're not supposed to post on.
Well, I mean, if they're posted, I'm walking
Yeah, you
along,
can take 'em down.
just rip it
Yeah,
off.
yeah, it's not like
We can monitor our own to that extent. We don't have anybody who can go around ripping off signs, but, each individual, you see it, you don't like it, it's not supposed to be there, rip it
I
out.
guess I was a little curious why that letter was directed to us. The gentleman actually is from Algonac, so I'm not 100% sure where he felt, why we needed to address it, unless he just sent it to all the municipalities asking for their cooperation.
I think it was a blanket situation. He was covering various areas. He didn't specifically point us out as a...
He's also a business owner, is my
Major
understanding
offender.
as well.
Was it?
Your Honor, I'd also indicate that this is a law enforcement question as well. We do have an ordinance on the books that prevents this, so I don't know that it's necessarily even the code enforcement officer's imperative, himself. I think if the police department were instructed that it's something that's got to take a heightened level of scrutiny, we could have police officers ticketing that as well, so.
They used to do it years ago. They used to pull them off a long time.
Best ones would be people that have their phone numbers on it.
Quick way to get, or an address.
Yeah, hello, you have a ticket coming your way.
I take them off at my corner, I got the pole right there, and it's like after a while you get tired of seeing it up there.
But some volunteers for the music festival were very generous in their support, and they, well-intended, but put some of our advertising signs in inappropriate places on the municipalities, and we got calls and emails pretty quickly, and we were happy to go correct that, but
So we're.
certain areas are proactive in that.
Sort of related to this discussion, we're having an estate sale in another city, and we had to go get a permit. And in that permit, it says we're only allowed to set the signs out at the street ends at a certain length of time, then we have to pick them up. And I don't know, do we have that type of?
I thought we do in our garage sale thing, they have to get a
You
free
have to get a permit
permit.
for garage sale, I'm not sure.
Do we have any guidance on what they can do with signs or can't do with
I'm
signs?
not sure, I just know that they have to come and get a permit.
I think most people, though, I've seen, they put them out that day and they take them down that
Most of
night.
them do.
Yeah, or it stays up over the
They're pretty good
weekend.
about not leaving them out there too much.
Commissioner Avery, are you
Oh.
satisfied with this discussion so far? Or do you want to go dive
Well-
into this a little deeper?
Well, no, this is fine at this point, although the sign issue goes back into the fact that we do have signs sitting out on sidewalks. We have items that are for sale spilled out onto sidewalks and things. If we want to allow it, we should probably change our code on that, that's all. But yes, this is good. The whole point is that when something comes in, we should discuss it rather than bury it.
I think we have more problems with signs that are stuck between the sidewalk and the curb and the right-of-way than we do on telephone poles.
Yes.
But that's the problem I see, is everybody puts them in there and that's a violation of our ordinance. They gotta be between the sidewalk and the house. So that's probably more of an issue that I've seen on the poles.
So, be careful with your signs and pick them up. All right, we'll move on. I think we've done this one. Fence ordinance 10B, this is an introduction. At this point, I don't think we even need to discuss it. It's just an introduction to the code, or?
Yes, Your Honor. Of course, by ordinance, we've got to introduce it at one meeting, and then it will be adopted at a subsequent meeting. And before you in your packet is the product of some discussions that came both from, I believe, from the commission to the planning commission. I know that it was reviewed by my office for revision. Those revisions were adopted, and I know in my review of the packet, in speaking with Ms. Levin last week before her departure, I know that Ms. Lepley of the Planning Commission had again reviewed what you had placed in the packet. So that's the last word from the Planning Commission on this. And if the commission wishes to adopt it, it would be put on for excuse me, if it were introduced tonight by the commission, it would be put on for adoption at a subsequent meeting.
So there was a lot of things brought up at the podium. I guess I was a little confused on some of them. This ordinance, as far as I can see, doesn't stop anyone from putting a fence out, right? And some of the issues that were brought up about loopholes, since we're working on this, did you want to address any of those?
Yeah, I mean, that one can say that there's infinite number of loopholes in just about any ordinance. No ordinance, because it has to be applied equally to all properties within the city, can be airtight. You know, that's one of the many things that we discussed, is that they're not necessarily loopholes, it's just reality. You can't have something 100% bulletproof because each property is different and unique. You know, there was a comment made about, you know, my front yard is my front yard. One of the major things, and I brought this up last time, was that there's conflicting terminology in what was a front yard when you're on your river property. That's why we introduced waterfront, to make that distinguishing gesture with inside the new ordinance, because there was an issue of how might we enforce that, and we want to be able to arm our staff in the city with some manners of enforceability with this. So that's why that appeared there. We didn't change someone's front yard. It's just that when you go to one house, they said, oh, my front yard is where the garage is, and the next one said, oh no, my front yard is where my sliding glass door opens to the river. And since there is existing terminology that referred to as front yards, that that cannot be equally applied to each property, so we put that in there to help with enforcement and clarity. But I guess I would just say, just like any other ordinance, they're not necessarily loopholes, because anyone is allowed to go to the zoning board of appeals. That is an ultimate loophole, but I wouldn't even call it that. It's due process. Someone is ultimately allowed to go to the zoning board of appeals and seek relief or hear it on a case-by-case issue. So personally, I would take exception to them being called loopholes, because I can't imagine that any ordinance can be 100% bulletproof just because of the uniqueness of each property and each instance that it's applied to.
I just have one question, or just a little distinction, and I noted it several times here, but you talk about the definition of a fence, a permanent fence, partition structure, gate erected, and then underneath residential fences in that 156.03 section A, 3 lines from the bottom, it says no fence, wall, or hedge. And, hedges and trees are not artificial, they're real. Should they not be included in that definition of a fence? And you mentioned hedges periodically throughout, but not consistently. And, a tree, a line of trees or a line of hedges are just as much a fence as an artificial thing is.
When you speak of those, the issue that we've discussed is that's considered green belting, so it's dealt with a little bit different than ordinances. So, a fence is a true structure, where things like that would be referred to as green belting, so it is a little bit different as it applies. So if you're using the definition of a fence, a fence is a fence, is a rigid structure, where something like a hedge it is by definition different because it's a natural occurring.
You do mention hedges. You have fences, and then you have this height shall be measured. No fence, wall, or hedge shall rise over 4 feet. That's in section A. So if you're going to include hedges, then perhaps it should be included in all areas. Perhaps it was brought up the concept of wood also. Is that considered part of the definition?
I mean, ultimately, the power lies within the code enforcement and their interpretations. I guess there's no infinite. You can play the loophole game, or where's that boundary? A new material come out 10 years down the road that might fit between a paper product and a wood product, and the ordinance is then not going to apply to that. So I guess the question is, how specific do you want to get? We again, as a reminder, we were revamping the entire ordinance as it applies to all properties in the city, and we just gathered the general information.
At the last meeting that this was discussed, basically everyone agreed that we were going to leave the wording and stuff to the people that did all the work on it, and not second guess or pick it apart.
Because as we indicated in the letter from the Planning Commission to the City Commission, is that we can use all of it, part of it, none of it,
right.
and you're welcome to do so. It was, Planning Commission is there for the general review and sort of recommendation of best practices based on our process. So if the City Commission wishes to change this, that was introduced in that letter weeks ago. So we would certainly have the right. We would of course have to adapt this and then introduce, rewrite it and reintroduce that. But, as a reminder that we always have that ability to, the Planning Commission just has a very specific process which was complete, and you saw the end result. So we could ask questions all the day as long, but, you have one recommendation. There's many different ways to put up a fence or skin a cat, choose your euphemism, and there's 1,000 different ways to go about that.
Commissioner Henry?
The biggest one I have is on page 2, section B. That second part where it says all chain link fencing is obscuring. Now, most all the other ordinances say it's not obscuring, because technically it really isn't obscuring. I don't know why we're listing
the reason why that appeared in there, because several times we had the discussion of exactly what's the clarity in there. Can I use it or can I not? And we apply that you cannot use it because that's the ultimate decision that the Planning Commission came up with. So we wanted to be bold because that's what most people tend to put up, either a privacy type fence or a chain link type fence. when we reviewed the ordinances and got a lot of, community input from those individuals that did come up, more often than not, it wasn't, 100% one way or another, but more often than not, they were not allowed, and that's the direction that we pursued. Again, this is what I talked about last time, this more speaks to which direction the city commission wants to go. That can be edited out, and that's why that appears there, though, because we want it to be 100% clear in the ordinance what was allowed, so someone could see that. That's why those words are there.
I understand that, but when I read through Clay Townships, they consider a chain link not obscuring. And they allow it to a point, and I've
And that's
seen
Clay
all
Township,
over.
and there's 100 different other ones that we've looked at, too.
I just don't see that a chain link fence is obscuring. Then you turn around and say a decorative fence that does not materially impede vision shall be permitted.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is if you're gonna put a fence on the waterfront, have something decorative as opposed to a chain link fence, which many people find unsightly. So, again, I'll just repeat, but this isn't the first time this has come through, and the last time we kind of said we weren't gonna make any changes. So now, if there are changes that want to be made, we'll have to see how we're gonna go about that, and then it'll have to be reintroduced. So, is that what the majority of the board wants to do at this point? Commissioner Avery? You raised your hand, I think.
Oh, no, I didn't, but since asked, I will say that I will defer judgment on the work to the committee that did this. They spent a lot of time researching it, and if something doesn't jump out as being terribly obvious, I can see the definition of obscuring and non-obscuring. I think probably the idea here is to avoid something that looks industrial or security-oriented. Granted, you can't put the barbed wire or razor wire on it, but the connotation of chain link fence certainly isn't residential or decorative.
Commissioner Turner?
I agree with what you're saying, Mr. Mayor. We talked about this before. Last time we talked, everyone felt that our planning commission did a good job in putting this together, and that we should just move forward with it. You can sit here all day and speculate and have personal opinion on what you think is ugly and what isn't, or what you think is obstructing and what isn't, and that's personal opinion. I rely on our board. They did spend a lot of time, a lot of effort to get this together, and I think what we've been given is good to go.
And again, it's ultimately a choice. If we as a commission choose to go in a different direction, that's fine, but at some point, someone had to make a choice based on that process. If we agree, if we change that's fine.
Well, I guess there is no motion or any action required at this point.
Well, no, procedural, Your Honor, there would be a motion and support to have the ordinance introduced.
To introduce it.
Introduce.
To introduce it.
Right, but what you
At this
just pointed out, we can introduce this tonight, or we can take it back for changes.
Yeah, it's whatever direction we
Based on
choose.
personal opinion on things.
Exactly. If
We'll
we
be
still
doing
feel it
this
needs work
a few
and
more times.
the
Or
board
at the-
wishes,
At the first
Yeah.
reading, you can vote no, and not adopt it, or,
So I stated my opinion. I think we should move forward, introduce what we have
do you
tonight.
want to make a motion to that effect?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we introduce this as presented.
Support.
With motion support, further discussion? Commissioner Henry?
I guess the only point I'm going to make is I don't have a problem with upgrading this, but I guess there's just a few small items in here that I just think are going to cause more problems, so.
I doubt there was ever a perfect.
I agree.
especially in regards to fences, it's something that we
Yeah.
discussed much, and ultimately, our inspector said that they gave him a lot of ammunition and really clarified things for him to be able to enforce, and also to clarify those individuals that had questions. So he said that really tidied things up for him. So he's the sort of gentleman in the field that, is sort of doing the work. Our attorney indicated that, the enforceability and that it went through his office as, raising no red flags, and the items that he offered to us, we adopted in there just to sort of clean that up as well. So one of those things is, if you have an ordinance, what's most important is how it's able to be used, and we feel that ultimately it's a much more usable ordinance and a clearer ordinance than we had before. So I think that's an important distinction.
Anyone else? Commissioner Melly?
One thing I did want to say is, in case if somebody wanted to oppose a certain item, saying their kind of offense, would they have to jump through a lot of hoops to make a variance, or
Any
can they?
individual still has due process through the zoning board of appeals that can allow them an exemption. Everyone
That's
still
what I
has
want to
that.
say.
And they've always
It's
had
not in
that.
stone.
Correct.
That's
Zoning
all
board
I
of
wanna
appeals
say.
always would be able to hear that, and that has not changed, and there's still due process for anybody that wishes to pursue that.
Okay. That's
And
all.
as a reminder to anyone that might be listening, anyone that has a current permit or an existing fence, this does not apply to you. This applies once it's adopted. You know, for example, if we introduce here and we adopt it, say, maybe in the next meeting, it only applies to permits pulled after that adoption and a bit of time for publishing as well. So it doesn't apply to anyone that has an existing permit or an existing fence.
Right. So anyone buying property in the future would be fully aware, or they could be fully aware of the changes in the ordinance. So, all in favor, say aye.
Your Honor, I have a roll call vote on this.
Roll call?
Commissioner Avery?
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick?
No.
Commissioner Lovett?
Yes.
Commissioner Melly?
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Mayor Skatarczyk?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, moving on to item 10C, which the city attorney will explain.
I'll help you, Your Honor. The Columbus system, for those who aren't familiar, is it's a police tool. The acronym actually stands for Courts and Law Enforcement Management Information System. And what it's done is essentially leveled the reporting of police activity across southeastern Lower Michigan. I think every police department in St. Clair County, excepting Clay Township, is now a member of Clemmis. And essentially what it does is it allows, if the Marine City Police Department apprehends somebody, perhaps 2 years ago, might not be aware that this same person is wanted on an outstanding warrant in the city of St. Clair. Now, because of the system, we'll have hits. We may find somebody in Woodhaven who's out on an outstanding warrant in Marine City. So it sort of levels the communications among departments. What this agreement does is it memorializes that the County of Oakland is the apparatus that's managing the program, and this document is being circulated among all the local communities and sheriff's departments to sign up for the service.
And this is something that comes up with every type of agreement like this. We can't make any changes to this?
That's correct, Your Honor.
What's the cost?
I did ask Jim Heslop, and he said that the price has remained the same. What the cost is, I don't know, but this is a renewal.
Yeah, it would have been,
It's in the budget, yeah.
yeah, I know he had a line item for it.
Yeah.
He said there was no
Commissioner
price.
Do you need a motion to approve this?
Yep.
It would give the authority to
Have,
City Manager Levin to sign it.
can make a motion to give the authority to City Manager Levin to sign for the Columbus.
I support.
We have motion support. Do we have further discussion on this? Do a roll call, I guess, since some money will be spent, even though we don't know how much.
Commissioner Hendrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Lovett?
Yes.
Commissioner Melly?
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Mayor Skatarczyk?
Yes.
Commissioner Avery?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Mr. Mayor, if I may say one thing, you just mentioned that, even though we don't know how much, we did know at one time, as we were budgeting through the budget process, just so folks that may be watching, we're not voting on something we don't know the price tag to during the budget process, and that we did know.
Backhanded complaint.
Okay.
It probably should have been included.
Yeah,
with
but
the
just for
rest of our information.
folks who are following along that may not have been with us during those budget process, that's an important distinction.
Yes, and any of us could have went and looked it up if we were that interested, so. It was in the budget and it was approved. This is basically a formality. On to item 10D, which is PA 33 millage information discussion. As I believe everybody knows, the gag order has been stayed. So that restriction spending any money to get out information has been lifted.
That's correct, Your Honor. The ultimate resolution won't occur till after the March 8th election. So essentially we're status quo ante before Senate Bill 571, which I think is memorialized as Public Act 269. Before that took effect, we're back to the same rules, that any objectively neutral factual information can be provided by municipal government to the community.
So there's not much time left, and this put on the agenda just to see if the commission wants to do anything. So they did a little research to see what a mailing would cost. I believe the mailing would be handled by our city offices, and this is the cost here on this letter. Another option would be to take an ad out in the Voice paper, which would actually be distributed on March 2nd. Commissioner Hendrick.
My only concern is that we don't have anything of what's going to be put out.
Well, it can only be information, and
Well,
it can't be advocacy, so all it can be is information.
I understand that, but it'd be nice to know what we're putting out.
I'd agree. We don't have a draft to look at, or,
Well, that's because there's, until we decide we want to do something, and the amount of time that's available, and our city manager is on vacation, so, I mean, we could just simply direct her to put something together, but if it waited till the next meeting, it would be too late. So, and I didn't take it upon myself to create anything, because, you know, after all, I'm just the mayor.
Yeah, I would like to see something perhaps in the paper, because, you know, we need an accurate reporting on what this millage would actually cost. We can say the average homes in Marine City is $81,000, but that's an average. We're going from, you know, $200,000 homes down to $2,000 homes. And, you know, what the average person in Marine City is not going to spend as much as been reported in the newspaper lately. You know, so I think we need to put that in. And also, where is this money going? I mean, we know that it was expressed before that, yes, it is paying for the police services. Do we want to add, one of the things that was requested at the open meeting that you had was that we have a second officer on at night. You know, that could be part of that. Capital improvement for our infrastructure and equipment, putting aside money, much like the fire department does. It puts aside money that can collect, and therefore you can buy equipment in the future. Any business has a capital improvement plan. You know, you don't come up, you know, all of a sudden something is gone. Well, how do I pay for it? Well, where are we going to find the money? It's not in the budget. There should be money accumulating in the budget for capital improvements. Road repairs. You know, there should be something in the budget going toward road repair. There should be something in the budget going toward replacement of some of the infrastructure, water lines or sewer lines that you know, have been identified but need to be corrected and are owed. We certainly don't want to find ourselves in the position of Flint, that did not take care of things like this.
Let's try to stay on this. I know, but at this point, I think we're going to have to, if we decide to do something like this, we'd have to just trust our city manager. After all, that's what we pay her for, to put something factual and informative together to inform the citizens of what the proposal's for. But I also want to point out, I had a discussion earlier with Ms. Baxter, and there's an issue with the local mail anymore. We're taking up to 13 days to have things delivered in the regular mail. So I think it would probably be too risky to even consider mailing with the amount of time that's available.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I was not finished, I'm sorry. But I was saying that all of these things could be put, and my recommendation was to do it in the paper, as I started at the beginning. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm finished.
Good. I just thought you were getting off track a little bit. That is my job, to keep the conversation on
Then
track.
keep me on track, don't start off. But anyway.
Commissioner Simpson?
Yeah, I would agree. If we're going to do something, I would lean towards, a quarter-page ad or the eighth-page ad, the direct mailing, just because of logistics and also because of the sheer expense. A lot of times if someone just sees a postcard, it sits and it's not actually read. I also think it's one of the things that we probably as a commission didn't do as great of a job in the beginning of the PA 33 process is the educational component of that. And so I would very much be in favor of at least looking at what that might look like to, maybe clarify some points or really just give some broad points of what we're looking to do with that to clarify. And I think
want to make a motion?
Yeah.
That would help speed the process up.
To be published in March 2nd. My concern is I'd want to read before we put it in, and that's the issue that I would have.
It's
I understand that, but
not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Unless you want a special meeting just to read something your city manager has put together. I mean, she
I don't,
has
but I
to-
don't
she
also
has
want to
to-
vote on something carte blanche either, so
Yeah.
I don't want to do that either.
Well, then it's not going to happen.
Have a special meeting.
Commissioner Avery?
We have some kind of computer system. I'm the last one to pay any attention to it, but this would seem to be something important to put into that stuff.
Well, we're
And
not.
It shouldn't cost anything. Computers are free, I'm told.
Well, people have to proactively seek out something on our site where this would hit every doorstep just about.
Well, it's just, people have spent all their time on the things. So, anyway, it's just a thought. We have it, we're supposed to use it.
There's more than one avenue, but this one here would be something that would cost the city money. Commissioner Hendrick?
The prior chief already put a proposal on there, but there was so many holes and inaccuracies in it, it never should have been put on there to start with. So unfortunately, that had been put on there. But I just have an issue. I think it should be gone over so that we know what we're putting out there. I don't think it's a good idea to just, because that's what happened with the last one. The last one was full of holes. It wasn't factual, and yet it got put out.
Anyone else? Commissioner Levitt?
I make a motion that we have a special meeting next Thursday to develop a dissemination plan for PA 33. No support. Okay.
No, there's no support for that motion. Yeah, I guess I'm a little, I would say that we hire a professional to run our city, and we should be able to trust that professional to just basically put out the facts of the PA 33. I don't have a problem with just authorizing her to do so. So that's where I'm at. Commissioner Avery?
I make a motion that we instruct the city manager to prepare the information for the facts of PA 33. I guess the only thing we're going to be able to use is the newspaper and then the electronic media.
I'll support that motion. Discussion, Commissioner Hendrick?
I know you talked about that and I'm not saying that our city manager isn't a professional, but our last city manager, the interim one, who also was in the same boat, put out the last one, which was all inaccurate and unfactual. So there's my concern. I still have a concern that unless we can view it, it's not a good idea.
Well, I guess I would disagree that all the information put out was inaccurate.
Awful lot of it was.
Totally. Commissioner Belli?
The only thing that I understand, I look at a newspaper, and a lot of times people look at a newspaper as being biased one way or another way. They're going to promote this item or promote that item. Only way I would approve having something, I want to see the pros and cons, actual facts of pros and cons. I don't want it to be slighted one way or this way. That's the only issue that I have a problem with the newspaper, because, well, then why can't as well as you will promote this from the city, then having another committee to promote on the same piece of paper, or would she do it? But that's what I'm saying. You can't do that, so it can't be justly
All we can put forward
factual.
is the actual facts.
But see,
In other words, you'd be talking about what our deficit is and how much money would be required, possible uses for the money, where the money would go, what our millage rate is. I mean, it would just have to be facts.
You
And,
can only use that money for police and fire.
right.
but the money that is already dedicated for the police and fire department, that money that's already dedicated for that is going to be used for something else. And that's where the people don't understand, and they're up in roar. And that's,
Explain that. Basically, it's going into our budget to cure our deficit, and it would be spent across the entire budget.
But we got rid of the deficit.
okay, all right, put it in a nutshell. You say, well, I'm trying to say pros and cons. A, will our property homes go up in value if the PA 33 passes? Or would our homes stay at the same value? Or will they plummet if it goes in passing? Something like that is what I'm saying as pros and cons. Let the people make their decision.
But no one could ever say that. That's predicting the future. If you
Well,
do that-
see, but that's what I'm trying to say, to be biased. In other words, being truly biased is, in other words, I'm showing both sides of the scale. Would PA 33 promote the city, or would it keep the house values at the same level, or would our house values plummet? Let the people make the decision. People are not stupid. I don't want to tell somebody.
That's having.
That's what I'm opposing.
Okay, but
saying.
all they would be putting in there is the facts, Commissioner Miller, because that's all she can put in there. She can't put in any advocacy, she can't take a position. We can't do that. The law still restricts the city on what we're allowed to disseminate to the public. So you can't do that.
But we've removed the deficit, so. how
We
you
remove
gonna
the
do
deficit by getting rid of capital spending and letting things fall apart.
But we have a lot of capital spending still in there. We're giving out 2% rate.
This isn't a
We're still
debate
buying
on-
trucks.
on the
But
budget.
that's what I'm saying. You're saying,
Is there a problem with putting facts out for just the facts?
but I'm saying it's not the facts.
What's not the facts? There are, which there is
You
no.
got rid of the deficit. There's no more deficit, so how can you
But we
say
have an existing
one?
capital projects list that's not funded that we talked about.
Yes, you do. You're paying for them. They're still in the budget. I got a whole list of them.
Yeah, let's get back on track. Okay, I'm gonna call the question, because this is just gonna be an endless argument. So, roll call vote, please.
I have a question, just a clarification. Does the motion that we're voting on require the ad? Or because all I heard was that we're directing the city manager to create that list. Would be create the list and publish in the paper? And if so, at what price point?
He did.
What was your?
For newspaper
I
and
said-
electronic, he said.
Yes.
But there's two separate price points here, and I think we need to, if we're spending money,
You
we
want
need
to
to.
clarify what size ad you'd like to go for? This isn't open for debate.
I'm not debating, I just want to make a suggestion. You could put a flyer inside the paper that would be very cheap. It would just be one sheet. You could even do two sides. You could put it in every newspaper in this, that just gets distributed to the city, and it's cheaper than doing an ad.
I'm sure you could, our clerk could look into that.
Because I've done it, it's cheaper.
I don't think they have enough time.
Well, there isn't a whole lot of time.
What newspaper would it
Voice, you'd have to have it in by tomorrow.
You're,
I recommend the 1/4 page ad. There just isn't enough room in a small, so that we can put out strictly the numbers.
so do you want to read the motion back to us that we're voting on?
He made the motion to instruct the city manager to prepare information of the facts of the PA 33 to be published in the newspaper and to be put out electronically.
So
in
we
a
won't-
one-quarter
page.
So we won't get to see it before she does it?
No.
Okay.
You could see it before she does it, but we wouldn't be able to vote on it. That would be against the Open Meetings Act.
I understand that, but
So, all right, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Lovett,
Yes.
Commissioner Melly,
No.
Commissioner Simpson,
Yes.
Commissioner Turner,
No.
Mayor Skatarczyk,
Yes.
Commissioner Avery,
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick.
no, and I want to qualify my vote by saying it's because we can't review this before it's published.
So is it, we pass or fail?
Yes.
Passed. Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10E, which is Commissioner request for information. The city manager, a request was made to the city manager to have a copy of all emails, I believe from the year 2015, from all city employees and commissioners. City manager did not feel like that was a reasonable request, was not going to comply with the request, but said commissioner was persistent, so she would like to bring it to us to see if it's something we would like to authorize. I guess the part of the problem here is there's almost 40,000 documents. Every document would have to be reviewed for private information that can't be shared, and every attachment would have to be reviewed, so there'd be a considerable amount of time and expense involved. Probably well in excess of the $2,000 she could approve anyway. So the question she would like to put to us, is this something we would like to authorize? If not, she is not going to comply. She would just say it would be a foible type of request. Commissioner Hendrick?
Well, I'm glad this is on here since I'm the one that asked for this stuff. And I just think people should know it's hard enough to do this job, but when you're constantly trying to get information, I've been waiting 2.5 months to get a chart just on wages and benefits, which is wrong. Then I waited 2.5 months to get a list of items that were sold by the city, and the reason why I asked because in the charter it states that anything over $2,000 has to be approved by the city. Well, we're selling stuff and we're not doing it by the charter. Then at the last meeting, I found out about some information that wasn't passed on and if I hadn't found out about it, it wouldn't have been provided. So I guess I get a little suspicious. I'm kind of like the average taxpayer that doesn't trust government too well. So I asked her for the emails. She told me a count of 35,000. I still find that hard to believe. That'd be 100 a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Highly doubt Marine City gets that many. Now, if there's another way to transfer things down, a lot of them, I guess I don't need my own emails, but I have a right to see information. If somebody came in tomorrow and FOIA'd that request, the city would have to do it, and they'd have to do it within so many days. I don't think that a lot of it has to be looked over. I didn't want the PD's stuff. I had no interest in any of that. The majority of it shouldn't be anything out of the ordinary that as a commissioner, I'm not entitled to. So I guess I'm asking you, is this the way it's going to be, that if I ask for information and trying to do my job, that I can be denied by this board, and so therefore I can't do my job?
I wouldn't characterize it that way, Commissioner Hendrick. I think that you're absolutely entitled, as any citizen is under the Freedom of Information Act. I think the issue is, what does the city manager view as a reasonable request for information? She's charged by charter with making sure everything runs smoothly within the city, and I think from time to time, all the commissioners present have asked for a document or a copy of something, and she's been able to comply with that request. But I think in this instance, it was something that she believed is of such a scope and such a cost that she didn't believe that it was something that she could reasonably acquiesce to. Now, you're certainly entitled to file that FOIA request yourself and receive it as a private citizen. But I think, if I understand Ms. Levin's issue, is it something she should do in a matter of course because of your position as a commissioner?
Well, exactly, but okay, so she tells me she's got so many. She doesn't come back to me and say, do you want to reduce that? Or is there certain ones maybe that she's found that I don't have? I don't even know how she found we had that many. I have an external hard drive. She could download them too, so I don't see where the big cost would be. But I guess the issue is if I want to look at certain information, emails are public record. And so even as a commissioner, I have a right to see them. I mean, I guess I just don't like that sometimes things are being done in the sly, and I want to look through those records. And I think I got every right to look through the records. Now, if I can scope them down to a smaller amount, I'd be willing to do that, but I still think I'm entitled to get the information.
You're absolutely entitled to the information pursuant to FOIA. And again, as I understand it, the question is, should it be a city-borne cost, or should it be a cost borne by you as an individual citizen seeking it? Because the number I was given by Ms. Levin before her departure was 30,000 documents.
She gave me 35,000 in an email.
Okay,
I got the email.
This is from the IT person that she spoke to. As I described to her, that each one of those documents would have to be scrubbed for compliance with FOIA. In other words, if it pertains to a personnel matter, for example, that may not be discoverable. If there's a legal opinion, for example, that may not be discoverable. If there's...
but I'm entitled to legal opinions as a commissioner.
Yes, you would be. But again, under FOIA, there are certain things that are exempt.
Yeah.
And so that wouldn't be the mechanism by which you would get it. You'd get it...
Okay, so as a commissioner, I'm not entitled to emails, is what you're saying?
I think that if it were an email, or if it were something
A certain amount or a smaller amount?
viewed as reasonable.
But all she had to do was come back and ask me that, okay?
Maybe that would be the source of another discussion with her.
I don't understand. I mean, I don't have any problem with discussing this in public. I think the public has a right to know how hard it is for me to get information, and I know you people have a hard time getting information. It's very difficult to try to do your job when you want to get the information. Now, if I have to skinny that scope down, I can work with that. But I think I'm entitled to the information as a commissioner.
That's right.
Any commissioner and I mean, you look at Hillary Clinton. Let's look at Hillary. I mean, she has to provide all hers, and I know they're doing it through FOIA and that. But even in other communities, there's been times where you have to request it, and I just like to see certain things. Now, I could scope it down, but I think I'm entitled to it as a commissioner, and I shouldn't have to FOIA it.
Do you think it's reasonable for your request for such a broad band of information to cost the city over $2,000?
I just said I could scope it down. If there was certain things I could cut out. I don't know how the city can get that much email in a year. I really don't.
Can you explain again what the request is? I'm a little confused.
For all the
I've asked for-
ranting about things being hidden behind her.
That's for years
What is
with
she
the
asking
emails.
for? I'm talking to the mayor right now. What are you asking?
She asked for every email.
Every single email
from 2015.
communicated between who?
I didn't ask for every email. I discounted the police department except for the chief. Okay.
Oh, so, okay.
And I said department heads only, and the commission, and the city manager.
Right. So,
How is this information going to be communicated?
I wanted it downloaded to a disk. I don't want paper. I can give her an external hard drive she can put it on, as far as that goes.
She's expecting our city manager to go through and review every single email? For what time period? What time period?
I asked for a year, but I had no idea at the time how many emails. So what I'm saying is she didn't come back and talk to me and say, hey, can we work on a request that's more agreeable? Okay. That would have been the thing to do.
My personal opinion, that's not a legitimate request.
Well, then, to me, then that just tells me that somebody's hiding something.
That's right.
If I can't see emails, then that's
right.
hidden information.
That's right.
no, that is not right. That is
Yeah,
wrong.
that is right.
No, it is not right.
Yes, it is.
You want to stop interrupting our meeting, please?
There is,
if you get squirted out of here, then.
There is nothing that, in our charter that says the city manager has to comply with any individual request from any commissioner.
I think it's her discretion, Your Honor.
It's at her discretion. We act as a commission, and we direct her as a commission, but no single commissioner has any authority over her.
Oh, okay.
I'm not done. We're in a budget crunch, so if Commissioner Hendricks' request would have been for a specific topic over a specific period of time, that probably would have been easy to honor. But when you just ask for every single email that goes through a city server for a year, I think our city manager was within her rights to say that's just asking too much. So, Commissioner Hendrick?
Okay, like I said, she did not come back to me. She goes on vacation, just tells me how many, and that's it. Then she must run you. But I think there's a double standard here. The double standard I see is that last meeting, the mayor took it upon himself, without the board's approval, to go talk to the sheriff and get a contract and hide it from us along with the city manager, which is a violation of the charter, and yet I'm wrong for asking for emails.
There was no contract. It was a budget amount. The board
Doesn't
did
matter.
authorize me
No.
to communicate with the sheriff.
And we got an answer from him. We didn't authorize you the second time. You admitted you went on your own.
The city manager asked me to
I don't
communicate
care.
to him.
You weren't authorized by the board.
To do
You
what?
don't
To
have
talk
any
to
more
the
power
sheriff?
than the rest of us.
What did I
But
do?
now you're saying you have more power than me, or now the board
I didn't say
has to
anything.
decide.
I have nothing to do with this. This isn't this was brought to us by the city manager.
That's
I can
fine.
talk to the sheriff all I want. Anybody can talk to the sheriff all they want. He didn't provide us with a contract or even a proposal. He provided us with a budget that anyone could have seen. Is all you did is look at Algonac or Fort Gratiot's.
Then why did you're the one that told us what you did. I'm not bringing it up. But anyway, all I had to say is, she can go back, and if she wants me to narrow this down to a smaller amount, I'm willing to do that.
That's up to
But
you.
I'm still entitled to get it, is all I'm saying.
You're entitled as a private citizen,
No, I'm entitled as a commissioner.
not on her own.
Yes,
No,
I
she
am.
isn't.
Then you're denying my right to do my job.
City attorney.
Well, again, I'll go back to, I believe that the charter is very clear that the city manager has the discretion to honor these requests if she wishes, or if she doesn't wish to, it becomes a topic of discussion as it is here tonight.
Well, then all I have to say is then, that just tells me that things are being hidden. I mean, I'm willing to narrow it down to a certain amount, but if that's the way it's gonna be, that you can't get information to do your job, it's very difficult.
Commissioner Simpson.
Why don't you keep your remarks to yourself, Mr. Chairman?
Why don't we
Feel
get the
free to jump in any time
Maybe you
and
could
comment
sit
on
around and
people.
do your
So,
job once in a while.
Point of
Here's
order.
medicine for you.
It's your rhetoric accusing
It's not
people.
my rhetoric.
It is your
Absolutely.
rhetoric
I'm trying to
accusing
do my
people of
job.
doing something that. Okay, so we're all hiding something because we don't want to spend
Well-
$2,000 or $3,000 to give you every email that was generated
So
over a
we're
year
all
period.
hiding.
But you don't even listen.
I don't have to listen.
have
You
a
didn't
choice.
ask me.
You never listen, that's your problem.
Oh,
You don't
I never
listen to them,
listen.
you don't listen to me.
Oh, I don't. So I don't
Let's
listen
put
to
an end to
anybody.
Well, that's the way it is.
The question to the commission is, do we want to authorize
Isn't that nice?
Commissioner Hendrick to have every email, excluding the police department, for the period of the year 2015 at the expense of the city?
That's not what I told you. I hadn't talked to her to see.
This is what this agenda item is.
Well, she
I
should have
don't-
brought it to you.
Whatever you think you want to ask for next, it's up to you. But this
All
is
right.
what this agenda item is for.
Fine.
We could just let this thing die without any emotion, because I don't really think anybody's going to support this, but if you want to make a motion, go ahead.
I'll go back and redo my request, but I'll tell you, I'm gonna get it one way or the other.
Commissioner
Or-
Simpson.
I just had a question for Commissioner Hendrick. I do think it's a cumbersome request, but I'm by far supportive of us having the information. Do you have a list of, you talked about the wage and benefit study, do you have a complete list of items that you're looking for that's not every email, but a very specific,
Well,
like
yeah,
reports of
Like I
that?
said, if she would've come back to me and said, you know, she gives me an email and says, oh, I'm gonna go talk to the attorney.
But you have very specific 10 items or whatever number.
I could narrow it down. I could narrow it down to what I want, yes.
Because I think
But she
anybody
should
should.
have come back and
yeah.
asked me for that. That would have been the smarter thing to do.
Does somebody want to make a motion? If not, I'm going to move on.
Well, no, I'm just going to say, we did get a complete wage breakout.
That's not
In
even,
the budget.
that's
Yeah.
just something else that's being thrown
Okay.
in here.
But it's the charter violations. We need to start going back on this stuff. And when we sell something, it should be going through there. That's my issue, is there's too many charter violations, and everybody ignores it here. And I keep bringing them up, and I'm gonna keep bringing them up, because all these sales were all done improperly. We never voted to sell any of this stuff.
That has nothing to do with your email request, or does it?
It
Is that what
does.
you're
It's
trying
part
to-
of the issue is that I'm trying to look at stuff to see what else is out there.
But then I would narrow your request to something that would be more reasonable.
Well, I can do that. But I'm gonna be persistent.
Does somebody
like
want to make a motion?
I guess you don't really need one.
No, not unless you want to vote on this. You'd have to get support. All right, moving on to item 11A, which is disbursements, including payroll.
Your Honor,
there's a 10F on the agenda tonight.
10F.
Yes.
Board appointments.
Oh, the board appointment. That was added. Yep, go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the application of Darlene Sukumelli Jarfus to the Board of Review.
We have motion support. Any discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome to the Board of Review. Now we can move on to 11A, disbursements including payroll.
Make a motion to approve disbursements, including payroll, $173,489.86.
Support.
We have motion support. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Melly,
No.
Commissioner Simpson,
Yes.
Commissioner Turner,
Yes.
Mayor Skatarczyk,
Yes.
Commissioner Avery,
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick,
No.
Commissioner Love.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to 11B, which is preliminary financial statements.
Make a motion to approve the preliminary, financial statements for January 2016.
Support. Motion support. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Since we have no city manager, move on to commissioner privilege, and I think we'll start with Commissioner Avery.
Worn out. Thank you. Nothing.
Mr. Simpson.
Just appreciate everyone's patience. I'm getting over double pneumonia. That's what this much coughing is about, and I apologize if it made the recording difficult or anyone here. I'm medicated and on antibiotics, but it's been a rough road, so I apologize.
Commissioner Millie.
Yeah, I have a few things that I want to make a comment on, and it is regarding about the PA 33. Initially, we wanted to get a fourth shift for the police department. And also, since time has passed, we didn't go with the fourth shift. Also, the chief is no longer with us, and that was a big portion of the budget. Between the two items, that was over $200,000. Personally, I do not know where the money's going. You know, people can say, well, the money's going here, the money's going there. That's why I oppose about putting an ad in the paper, because I wanted to see actually where the money's going. When the city was running the fire department, that was over twice the amount of money. And then it went with the fire authority. It's amazing when people work together how they could cut the budget down and make it work with the city. Meanwhile, the police department got their 2% raise. That's not included with the PA 33. They got their raise, and also with the chief of police being gone, the inner chief Officer Heschlup, he's doing a great job, and it cut the budget completely. I just don't understand where. I'm tired of not knowing where the money's going to go. And to me, it's very important. I want to see exactly I don't want to just say, well, the money's going to go here, the money's going to go there. I want to know exactly how much, what you're going to allow it for, one thing or another. And the other thing is, the biggest issue is that I'm concerned about is if it passed, would our house values go up or would they go down? And to me, that's a big issue, and I'm concerned for the people. It's nice that people that want to say, well, I want to see the city grow, and that's great, but no one's stopping you. You want to give extra money to the city will gladly take your money. No one's going to stop you and say, oh, no, we don't want to take an extra $1,000. If you want to give an extra $1,000 on your taxes, go for it. As a donation, that's great. But you know what? Don't put me in that spot to say that you're demanding extra money. I don't care if it's only $200. That's $200. You know, to me, that's something that I'm concerned about, and I'm speaking out. I've had people calling me up and asking me, Ray, where is the money going to go? And I actually told them, I don't know. And I'll be point blank, and after the chief has been gone, what a blessing. I'm sorry, what a blessing that the Marine City is doing so much better, and financially and everything else, and our police force is doing fantastic. I mean, talking about a lot of money, I'm sorry, that man, he proven fact that, in fact, his project of being the part-time police department, he wasn't supposed to stay chief. It was supposed to run on the 3 full-time police officers were going to take hand and running the police department after he was done with his work. And I'm just tired. I just feel like, you know what? If the money was actually going for here, but it's not. We have enough money to take care of it. And as far as putting the ad in the paper, that's great. You want to put an ad in the paper, but to me, I'm sorry, I can't approve something that I wanted to see exactly where the money's going. And I'm just speaking out because I've heard a lot of people calling me and talking to me, and I can't give them an answer. And to me, your vote is very important, and if somebody wants to donate extra money, the city will gladly take your money. Believe me, they'll take your money. But I just look at it this way. If there's a need or a purpose, if somebody says, you know what, Ray, we need money, we're going to take care of Pearl Street, or we're going to take care of Broadway Street, we're going to repave it, we need extra funds, we're going to have a millage for this project, specifically this project. You'd be surprised how many people before it. And as they know that the money's actually going for this project, they'll be actually for it. Instead of saying, well, the money's just going to go into the general fund. And I'm sorry for speaking out like this, but I'm just tired of the nonsense of saying that the money's going to take care of this department or that department. I feel as though that our police department is doing quite well, and I'm glad we got them. We have our local police. They're doing fantastic, and I commend the officers. They're taking care of our city, and we're in good shape, you know. And I'm sorry it's sounding off like that, but it's just before the election, and I'm open for, if somebody wanted to contact me and talk to me, you're more than welcome. You can call me, and I'll gladly talk with you and go through step by step. But as a commissioner, I see certain things, and I'm tired. Yes, I would like to know information about different things. Commissioner Hendricks has made some valuable points that she wants to know the inner works of the city. Now, it's not that she's going to publicize it, you know, and she asked for what she requested for, but, you know, Elaine needs, she's working at it. She's a new city manager, and she's working at it, and she's finding out different things. I'm sorry I spoke too much. All right. Thank you.
Shaw.
I just want to say thank you to the Planning Commission for all the work. I know there's a lot of work that went into the fence ordinance, and it's a great guide, I think, for the city to have that done. So I know I had some questions, but thank you for doing that. In regard to knowing where monies go, that's what we worked on the budget last year. We did 2 budgets. The first budget was basically for we included the PA 33, and I believe all the commissioners were present for that. What will we do the next? We have another budget workshop coming up, I believe, in April. April 26th to 28th. We'll be working on budgets. So, it's kind of a odd timing in between here for things like that, but. We can know where those things go if we look back over our notes. Expenses continue to go up. Yes, we have a budget right now that's working. It is tight. There's no room for any of the increases that keep going up. So anyway, thank you and have a great evening.
Commissioner Henry.
The only correction I want to make with Ray's comment is the 2% raises are in for everybody except for the DPW. Those were left in there. So if you have a city that's having problems and you're leaving 2% raises for everybody, that raises everything else that goes along with it. So I don't know how you can say that you're in dire financial straits and that you're giving out raises. There was a lot of misinformation too as far as the roads and everything else in here. But I'll get into that beforehand, and I'll cut this one short. Thank you.
I just want to put out a couple of facts here. At the last meeting, we had someone come to the podium and say that our millage rate is 42. It's not. Our actual millage rate, if this is 100% homestead, if it's your primary residence, it's 39.5816. That is our millage rate, not 42. It's been reported in the paper and on the podium. Also, an interesting thing that's been brought up is property tax increases will increase our revenues. Well, they won't. The multiplier for 2015 was 1.016. The multiplier for 2016 was 1.003. So what that means is regardless of how much the state equalized value of your property went up, that would be the city's total increase in taxable value, which is basically nothing. So that's part of the problem here and why we have this reoccurring deficit that we balance every year by making massive cuts, one of which was getting rid of a whole police shift. Another one was getting rid of lifeguards. There's a lot of compromises that are constantly being made, and the question of how and where the money will be spent, it's going to be spent across the entire budget. There's no one project it's earmarked for, and I think part of what's trying to be disseminated out there is that we have a secret plan to spend the money on 300 Broadway, which couldn't be farther from the truth. The other thing is this constant accusations of dirty deeds and hidden stuff and secret agendas, and I would sure like to know what I have to gain by anything if I'm the focus of these type of comments. Also, I'd like to know what I have to gain by promoting a certain, I can't say what I was about to say, so I'm not going to. Anyway, yeah, the budget workshops are coming up. If anybody wants to know where the money's being spent and how it's being spent, that is actually the place to find out. You will get more than enough information at those workshops. And I had another note here, but I guess for right now, that's all I'm going to say. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.